The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
All right, it's episode number 65, and it is 17 days till the man burns as of this recording. I figured out why I haven't been stressing as much about getting ready. Seriously, I know it's been like a really terrible running joke in the intros for the past couple of shows, but it's weird. I've been stressing, right? But I realized I haven't been so much stressing about prep as much as I've been stressing about not stressing, right? Like, what the fuck does that mean? Well, it ain't my first burn. And I mean, meaning at this point, it's not even about Burning Man prep, but, you know, any burn, any other burn event or crazy festy outing. What you learn as you burn more is you get to know you. And I'm having the craziest deja vu right now because I may have hit on this topic last year before the Gerlach Regional. I've been stressing about the fact that I haven't been stressing, not feeling a sense of urgency. I have all this shit I need. Ordered some better lights online, I guess, or whatever. But other than that, meh. I have a bike I'm really happy with. My Kodiak tent is fucking perfect. And this year I'm camped with Burners Without Borders, and there's like this whole shade structure and a meal plan. I think there's a shower. I don't know. I've battled a dusty hell and heat storm the past years, so having access to all this shit is pretty alien. And I've been kind of stressing that I might be forgetting things. And then I realized, I'm probably forgetting things. Shrug emoji, hashtag whatevs. Figure it the fuck out when you get there. Like that's the way that we do it anyway, so whatever. I feel focused. I feel strong. The playa is populated by friends. I'm sandwiched between camps where I know a bunch of people. Had a friend say to me a while back that your first year in Black Rock City, you're a tourist. And then your second year, you're like crashing on your buddy's couch. And then like your third year, you're a citizen. So I guess any year after that, you become a crusty old timer sitting on your porch and bitching about the way this city used to be. By the way, I finally partook in a combo frog ceremony. Do you like that sudden topic shift? For those of you who may not know what the flipping hell I'm talking about, we get into it on episode 49 of this show where I sat with Edward Dulé. Long story short, you apply poison from an Amazonian frog into the wounds in your skin and vomit profusely and violently for about a half an hour. And people kept asking me, so how was it? To which I've been replying, oh, fucking awful. It is without a doubt the most uncomfortable I've ever been for such an extended period of time. It's as if your insides are trying to escape your skin through your throat. That's how it feels. And then they're all like, well, why would you do this to yourself? And I'm like, I don't know why I would do this to myself. But seriously, you feel amazing afterwards. I am focused. I feel strong. Wait, I said this earlier in the intro already. It's a cleanse. It feels like you've done some serious deep cleaning in that bag of skin and meat you call your human form. And it cleared out some blockages that I was feeling for sure in my solar plexus chakra. I said for sure. That's pretty funny. I don't know, man. It's an awful, horrible experience, and I highly recommend it. It's basically like that purge segment of ayahuasca, but without all the rest of the psychoactive stuff. Which, like, again, yeah, it's a hard sell, but trust me, it's worth it. But you know what's like the total opposite of that? Like the one that feels more pleasant and warm and nurturing. For me, it has anyway. Tapping as an emotional freedom technique, or EFT for short. Tapping, you've probably seen it before. You've heard of this. Most of you are probably at least passively familiar, but just in case you're not, here's some information my research team prepared for me for today's show. And by that, I mean, here's some excerpts from the first few paragraphs of the Wikipedia page about EFT. Emotional freedom technique is a form of counseling intervention that draws on various theories of alternative medicine, including acupuncture, neurolinguistic programming, energy medicine, and thought field therapy. Advocates claim that the technique may be used to treat a wide variety of physical and psychological disorders, and as a simple form of self-administered therapy. So the long and short of it, this is me speaking again. The long and short of it is that you're tapping on your energy meridians and basically going through a guided meditation. That's the experience that I've had. And as with many of these energy work type things, I don't even know if it's proper to call it energy work. The kinds of stuff that we talk about on this show, alternative approaches to personal growth. If you've decided it's not going to work, it's probably not going to work. But if you're utilizing it as a tool for internal discovery, as part of a well-rounded approach to loving self-care, there are some amazing experiences that could be had. So why are we talking about EFT? Well, because today's guest is the fabulous, the beautiful, the amazing Sonya Sofia, EFT practitioner, playa goddess, all-around epic contributor to the Burning Man community, just a gift herself. Her actual presence is a gift to all of us. If you've been to the burn more than once, I'd say chances are very high that you've either participated in or passed by her massive workshops that are taking place at Red Lightning on Esplanade. Bobby B, I'm just going to say B for her last name. Bobby B is a friend of the show and a fan. Thank you, by the way, Bobby, for all of your awesomeness. You're pretty fucking fabulous yourself from the little bit of cyber stalking I've done. She pinged us a couple of months ago about whether or not we'd be interested in a guest suggestion. And when it was revealed that her suggestion in question is Sonya Sofia, I was like, yes, let's get Sonya on. I've tapped with Sonya every year since my first burn, and it would be an honor to be able to sit with her. It was an honor to be able to sit with her. We're going to talk about the details of the story of how my own experience is tapping with her during the forthcoming recording. But listener, I can't stress to you enough what a magical experience this has been for me. I started this silly little thing, this podcast, because it was a gift I felt that I could give to this community, and for it to have reached a point where it's coming around full circle, I can't even describe the feeling. I'm not a regular practitioner of EFT, but I've had some wonderful personal breakthroughs tapping with Sonya on Playa, where we're all like a little more activated, if you will. So we'll be talking about that, actually. We start by getting into the topic of childhood trauma in general. At about the 30-minute mark, we get into Burning Man stories. And I'm not going to give it away, but I'm telling you, the story of Sonya's entry into her first Burning Man is absolutely the most epic one we've ever had on this show thus far. It's going to be a tough one to beat. At about an hour in, we get into the subject of EFT itself and personal care. As many of you already know, Sonya Sofia will be conducting big, huge daily workshops at Red Lightning on the Playa. If you haven't partaken, I highly recommend you do at least one class if you make it out there this year. Make it out to Burning Man 2017. So, hey, a lot of you might be listening to this on your drive out, by the way. Follow the speed limit and try not to give your money to Mona County. I'm definitely taking the longer, boringer route in order to just not deal with that crap. But anyway, I'll be camped at Burners Without Borders on 245 and Esplanade this year, so please do swing by for a dusty hug. I'm pretty sure I'll be around as a camp steward all day on Tuesday, and there's like recordings happening on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with the speaker series, so I'll be around, or at the very least, you'll just annoy my campmates. So without further delay, today's episode is entitled Tapping into Sonya Sofia. Do you like what I did there? I really like that. I'm really good with names. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for the you get no name.
Years and like I think you'll be like episode 65, and like to this day it's always the exact same build-up. Like I don't have necessarily like a logical thought process that makes me nervous or anything, but like as it's building up to it, there's this like nerves about like, oh, I'm going to work. But then like as soon as the conversation starts and like we get into it, it's just completely gone. But you would think after 6 years of doing that, that routine would stop.
Do you think that it's mostly around the Burner Podcast because you care so much about this community?
To some extent. Well, there's a couple of reasons. I think because for the other show that I do that's been on for 6 years, that one I have a co-host. So
there's a support person.
Yeah,
this is all you.
Yeah. Well, it's the guest, I mean, ultimately. But yeah,
you're responsible for how things
right,
end up, right?
And I think also because like the guests, like that's the thing about Burner Podcast is like every guest that we get is dramatically different from each other
and can be dramatic, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. We have like art profiles, camp profiles, and like, and mind you, of course, like I've only really had like 2 episodes I can think of that were difficult to get through. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's funny to this day for some reason. As soon as it starts, I'm like, oh, okay, we're fine. We're in the right place.
Yeah. Well, I think it just means that you really care about this particular work because it's close to your heart.
An attachment. So,
yeah.
I
because this is your creative project. Mm. This isn't just, you're just doing this for money. You're doing this for love. Yeah. And that matters.
Yeah, I guess it would. And it's because a lot of, I see this less as something that like I'm doing, is more like it's the history of our culture, of our community, mm-hmm. documenting that properly. Yeah. As
it's happening.
Yeah. So, and it's fun to see like that energy growing and like more people seeing like the value behind it. And I felt like when I first started it, there was a lot more of like this conversation of like, oh, it's your podcast. I'm like, oh, I don't really see it that way, but sure.
But you're doing it for the collective. Yeah. Which is how we do everything at Burning Man. It's for the collective. Yeah. If you're doing it right. I mean, if you really understand.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a moment where you felt that that's what you were getting yourself into, or was it always been the way that you've seen the world?
That's a good question. I think that, I started learning about festival culture from kind of the original festival that started in America, which was the Rainbow Gathering, mm-hmm. which came from the kids from Woodstock. Mm-hmm. And are we recording yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Which came from the kids from Woodstock. So when Woodstock was over, they were like, well, what are we going to do now? And the idea was, well, we should just all go into the woods and teach each other what we know. Right. And they did. And that started the festival scene. Mm-hmm. And they played music and they shared resources and they gave from what they brought and they taught each other skills. And that's where our workshops and our live music and our, taking care of each other and our gift economy, all that came from the Rainbow family. And I spent 18 years every summer in the forest doing all those aspects. There's no money.
Yeah.
And food is not to be bought or traded even. It's to be given freely.
Yeah.
And no one does what they don't want to do. And if no one wants to do it, it doesn't need to be done.
Yeah.
And we move as a family and we take care of each other. And I see that kind of Mama Rainbow created like young son Burning Man, who is, look what I can do. Look at me. I'm going to blow stuff up. Check this out. Aren't I sexy?
Yeah.
And so I came to Burning Man from that route and understood what I was looking at. I was like, this is the next iteration, but way more colorful and blingy. Rainbow isn't big on costumes. They could use a little help in that area, actually.
Yeah.
And there's no gratuitous...
Do they wear clothes?
Well, there's no gratuitous nudity for nudity's sake. You're naked because it's a hot day or because you're bathing or your clothes are wet or, but it's not so much like, these are my tits and this is my ass. Check it out,
At Burning Man, I'm totally like, these are my tits.
I actually found if you really want to get attention at Burning Man, wear more clothes.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, are you okay in there?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's half naked. And so the person that's got like the full suit on or the tux or I wear these big gowns, they're like, whoa.
Yeah. What year was your first Rainbow Gathering? And how did you end up there?
I had an 11-month-old baby on my back, so it must have been 1990.
Wow.
And I ended up there because a friend of my sister's was going. And they just threw me in the back. I was 22 with my baby.
What were you doing in your life?
We drove a little Celica all the way up the mountains and and got up a 3-day drive.
How many people in a Celica?
3.
Okay. It's,
And whatever we needed to camp for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not a lot of space.
No. We didn't have a lot of anything. I think we had gas money there and we weren't sure how we were going to get home.
What was going on in your life at that time? Like, where were you living? What was your family like?
I was a college student. I was unmarried and pregnant. I was...
Where were you going to college?
The University of North Texas.
Okay.
And I could feel myself hardening. My heart was getting tighter. I was getting less trustful of other people. I felt targeted by men sexually. I was a model and I was constantly getting this like sexual attention and energy that I didn't like, and I could feel myself just getting tighter and harder. And you see this in attractive young women. They just, they're always looking very skeptically at everybody. And
absolutely.
When I got to the Rainbow Gathering, it was the first time that people looked past that and just saw me. And they had this group agreement that you call each other brother, sister, you treat each other like family. And so I felt safe. Like I walked around for the first time topless in the woods and it was normal and okay.
Yeah.
And I went, oh. So my faith in humanity started to get restored. My daughter took her first steps at the Rainbow Gathering. And so when I came to Burning Man, it was more like, oh, I know how to rock this.
Yeah.
This is a very different kind of terrain. There's no trees. There's no running water. But I understand the vibe and I know what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to get to that in just a second. But so what were you majoring in? Were you just like trying to go through school?
I was majoring in art, fashion design.
That makes sense.
And dance.
Yeah.
And I was getting more and more bored because what I really wanted to learn, they didn't teach in that university.
Which is what?
I wanted to learn about healing. I wanted to learn about basically how to really live and be a good person. And eventually they kept trying to force me into a degree plan. And I was like, hey, I'm paying for these classes. I should be able to take whatever I want for as long as I want.
Right.
This is nothing more than an overgrown high school. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm now self-educating. I checked myself out of school and had just gotten back from 7 months backpacking around Europe on my own to learn about life. I came home and actually the reason I came back from Europe was because I woke up on my 21st birthday with this dream in my head, and I heard this voice in my head saying, you need to go back to America now. You're about to do the biggest commitment of your life. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I must be needing to go back to school because I checked myself out of school. Yeah. So I went back and re-enrolled, and within 3 months I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And that was the most big commitment and learning experience I ever had.
So you have felt, for lack of a better description, a connection to spirit sort of like long before you started to discover your tribe, for lack of a better description. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
I grew up in a family where I would say alternative sensory skills were normal and talked about. So my mom played ESP games with us, Aura games.
You're going to have to tell me about an ESP game.
I've got an energy ball, and, can you see it? I'm moving it around. Where is it? Yeah. And as children, we could see that stuff. And because it was normalized, those skills didn't disappear for me. Right. I actually was able to grow them. And we had practice going into alpha state of consciousness, which was really big in the 70s. And so my mom taught me how to relax consciously every muscle in my body, how to turn one hand hot, one hand cold, how my thoughts affected my life, how my subconscious was constantly listening to what was coming out of my mouth, to be conscious of what I was saying, all of that stuff. And, it was sort of like, I don't know, like growing up like a little witch or something at Hogwarts. I remember as a child hiding behind a tree on the playground, witching a kid off the swing set so I could have a turn. He's like, you don't want to swing, it's getting boring, like staring at them, and they would just sort of not want to swing.
Yeah. And, is that fair?
No. But I didn't know.
Don't do that,
I don't do that. I only use my powers for good.
Yeah.
But
So you, from a creativity and art, that was something that you felt connected to, but ultimately you knew that it was a vehicle to healing rather than your end goal. Because I think this is something a lot of artists struggle with.
So here's the deal. I'm a healing artist, right? And when I went to art school, I wanted to paint orgasms, right? And I'm expressing this on watercolor paper with ground metallic paint, and I'm showing, and the class is totally lost on them. They're just like, oh, or they're getting turned on, and it was just awkward. And then I was looking for my medium. Is it painting? Is it sculpting? Is it making clothing? And then I realized that none of those mediums were permanent enough. So artists are always looking for something that's going to be outlive them. We need archival paper. We need, make this in bronze, make it in stone. My medium is consciousness, and my art projects are people and communities, and they're self-replicating, which, what artist wouldn't want to make something more beautiful than they found it and then have it keep reproducing more and more beautifully in spontaneous creative ways?
Right.
It's so beautiful. So, when I find a perfectly lovely human being that's malfunctioning because of basically abuse and cultural conditioning, and I can help them remove what isn't them. Yeah. And they appear to the rest of the world as they appear to me when I look at them, and I'm like, that's who I always saw you as. And then they go on to create a community or create a family or create a business or create music or videos or books or a family from that natural essence. It's 100 million times joy coming back to me, like, look at this.
Right.
I don't take responsibility for that, but I know that I cooperated in supporting that process.
Yeah.
And I'm watching that happen at Burning Man, right? And I really get high from helping people melt off the fear and the pain and the insecurity and the judgment and the self-hatred until they're just shining as they were originally meant to be.
Yeah. It is the ultimate drug.
And then to watch what happens as a result of that. You know? So that's my art.
Yeah. No, it resonates for me. Like, as a photographer, I have found that like the strongest high I do get is I'm pretty good with portraits, but really shooting people in a way that I see like other photos that a lot of times people post where it looks like heavily photoshopped and it doesn't even look like the person anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're able to like really get into the core of who that person is and bring out the beauty that's already there and to be able to show that,
then it's magic.
Yeah. Then it really is the magic.
And it's alive because it's their essence coming through. It's not staged.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, I had sort of like my artist awakening and a few years ago before I kind of came into the burn community, and that sort of paved the way for coming in. But this is where it's connected, sort of what you're describing. I realized there was a time that I thought there was very much like the artists in the world, and then there's everybody else. Like there's this like genetic shift that some of us are gifted or cursed with, where we're stuck with this thing. We can't stop creating.
Right.
And for me, I very much felt like it was a curse because I was like, make it go away. I just want to go get a job as an engineer or something and be normal. But what I've discovered after meeting more and more people like yourself and connecting with more people in this community, in this tribe, is everyone's an artist. You know, like the minute we come into creation, you watch like a tiny child, like the first thing they start to do when they start to learn how to control their limbs is they want to start creating. They want to draw, they want to build things. Like we're all, it's beaten out of us as we get older. And I think like it's interesting to look at like your upbringing. It looks like that process didn't happen.
On the energetic, psychic, spiritual level, it didn't happen. And at the same time, I was subjected to public school. And so all of that kind of had to go underground. And they don't have classes to mentor you in school. So I could draw and paint and things like that, but I wasn't being, you know, I needed to go to Hogwarts, basically. I needed to learn how to go into advanced, deeper states of consciousness and how to use that to manifest and create and energetically shield myself and, you know, all that stuff. And I developed a school for that now, basically. Yeah. And I call it the School of Living Arts, which is what we needed to know in school. We needed to know how to have relationships. We needed to know how to take care of our bodies. We needed to know how to balance our budgets and save. We needed to know what the work-life balance is between how much structure I'm putting into a job and how much I need play and free time. And we needed to know how our bodies work, what nutrition is, all that stuff. And also, most importantly, how to love. Yeah. Like, what would it be like to spend 6 years studying that instead of 6 years taking English classes or... ridiculous.
Yeah, because, I mean, everything you're describing is about uniqueness and teaching people to connect to their individuality, which kind of comes around full circle into connecting with the consciousness, like the oneness, if you will. Whereas a lot of our schooling system really is designed around standardized testing so that we can plug you into a part of the machine.
Well, if you look at what they do to kids, they're at a 40-hour-a-week job. In school, sitting at a desk under fluorescent lights with a lot of other little workers in their little cubicles. They're prepping you for an 8-hour-a-day desk job with 7 different bosses that you have to please or you're going to get fired. Right. And you're not going to have your insurance of getting to go to college or getting the good job. And they're going to do this to you for 12 straight years until you can't think past that. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so they're not training us to actually be like healthy, dynamic, creative, interesting, alive people that contribute our gifts with joy to society and have strong, healthy, sexy bodies. You know, that's what they should be teaching us. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of the work I'm doing is cleanup and should have been taught in kindergarten. Yeah. And then we're just doing a lot of... removal of the dysfunction so that people's natural childlike essence can come back online and say, thank you. Now I can see and feel again.
And this reminds me of it's a quote from Michelangelo. He says, I saw the angel in the stone and I carved until I set him free.
That's exactly it.
So you're 22. That's when you discover the Rainbow Family and you start to go yearly. And you're raising a child. What's happening in like the next few years?
I'm making a commitment because it's free. And it also brings me to life. So each year I go back to the gathering and I learn a different aspect of community. From like, okay, this year I'm going to cook in a kitchen and serve thousands of people food. And next year I'm going to be the hair wrap girl, and I sit on the side of the trail and put beads and strings in people's hair, and people give me pine cones and crystal necklaces. And and meanwhile, I'm learning how to raise a child naturally. So I'm reading books on parenting, which for anyone listening, one of the best books I ever read, if you're kind of a brain geek like me and you want to know how consciousness works in children, is a book called Magical Child, Magical Parent by Joseph Chilton Pierce. And he talks about brain development and how our brains edit for either street smarts or the higher functions, which would be like the artistic, poetic. You know, if your hierarchy of needs is being met, you don't have to learn to slug it out. You can go into a more expressive self.
The brain focuses on the thing it needs most.
Exactly.
At that moment.
And it actually edits neurologically for whatever's happening in the environment.
Right.
So I was studying things like that because I didn't want to screw up my kid.
Right.
I figured she came in whole and intact.
Yeah.
The best thing I could do is get out of the way and stay loving and figure out how to give her the highest quality foods, what a real education is, and stay close to her. And I refused to trade her childhood to someone else that I paid to look after her while I went and worked a job I didn't like. So I kept my expenses down. I lived simply. I took care of other people's kids so I could stay home with mine.
Yeah.
And I learned how to take care of little people who were developing, which later became the foundation as a healer, because ultimately, no matter how old someone is, what we're really looking at is childhood wounds. And it doesn't matter if their body turned, 45 or 50. They may be functioning from a place that got stunted around 5 or 6 or 15.
Absolutely.
And when they're triggered, they're in a state of mind from that perspective.
Yeah. It's I had a therapist early on tell me or bring to my awareness that a lot of my personality type is designed around not having had this experience in my childhood of feeling totally safe and protected.
Yeah.
Because there's violence in the house. And so from my earliest memories were that I was very aware that I could say the wrong thing and my mom can get hurt. And I've met more and more people on this journey since that when I discovered that, I thought it was a rare thing. But the more people I've spoken with, especially in our community, the more I've found that it's so much more common.
And that's part of why I care so much about this community, because there was violence in my home. It came out on me because I was the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
My stepfather couldn't beat my mom, but he could beat me when she wasn't looking. And I could feel my brain shutting down. I could feel that, like yesterday, I felt like this inside and I had these capacities at school. And today, I feel numb and my brain doesn't work as well as it did yesterday.
Yeah.
And I actually started studying the effects of child abuse when I was probably 12 or 13. I started going to the library, doing research papers, reading everything that there was. And there wasn't a lot of information about child abuse because kids weren't supposed to remember their childhoods.
Yeah.
So they didn't count. So you could treat kids like however you wanted. You could molest them or force them into slave labor at your house or on your farm, and it just didn't matter until they were adults. And then suddenly they were supposed to pop out like whole and intact, not having any kind of trace of what had happened to them. And it's not true.
Yeah.
So I have a passion for artistic temperaments, people who are empathetic and sensitive, and for people who've been hurt and abused. And you don't have to be hit or yelled at to have psychological scars. It can be what you've seen. It can be an implied threat that's constantly in the background. And worst of all, believe it or not, is negligence. It's actually better to be targeted by a parent than it is to be ignored.
Yeah. At least there's something happening. You're getting some sort of reaction.
Right. And we have mirror neurons in our brain. We actually need to interact with each other as little people, babies and kids, in order to get a sense of self. Mm-hmm. So if no one's interacting with me, or the only thing that's interacting with me is a television set, there's no feedback going back and forth. So I actually don't build a sense of self.
Yeah.
So, which is an interesting thing to try to undo later in life.
This might be a bit of reaching. I'm just thinking about it as you're describing, and I was actually just learning about mirror neurons recently on some big think talks I was listening to online. And it does feel, I swear it feels like when I'm walking around in society, I feel like I do interact with people who are very much like, for lack of a better description, like just checked out.
Yeah.
Checked out of who they are. Like it's this robot-like experience of I'm going to go to work, then I'm going to come home. And, you know, I almost wonder if there was a time where we knew less about psychology and science as we do now, that people would have looked at somebody like that and almost said, like, are you even connected to having a soul? Because there's like this robot-like behavior. But what you're describing almost makes me wonder, like, if that was a part of their upbringing, they didn't have enough connection with other human beings.
Yeah.
And they are very much human beings feeling pain. I'm not saying that they're not, but they do feel, it just feels like they're feel numb.
So think about this. Woman has a child. She has to go back to work. She doesn't have maternity leave. Maybe she has a few weeks. She may or may not breastfeed. Mm-hmm. She puts that baby into daycare as an infant. At 6 weeks old, they'll take him. The child is laying in a crib under fluorescent lights with a care provider for every 2 to 4 babies. And they're away from bonding. They're away from touch. They're not getting facial recognition or interaction. They're being maintained. Their diapers are being changed. They're being fed. They're left to kind of cry it out. You know, because they're over. Who can take care of 4 babies at once? Yeah. Not very many people, day in and day out. So the mom comes home. She's tired. They may put the child in front of a screen that's moving because they get hypnotized and they're quiet and easy to deal with. You know, and the kid grows up in front of screens. I'm watching yesterday in the airport. I flew in to do this interview with you. And everyone was staring at a screen, from the littlest kid sitting there with their iPad playing a video game. Mom and dad both on their cell phones. They're not interacting with people. Right. So I wouldn't say that these people don't have souls. It's that they're numb. Mm-hmm. They aren't interacting with each other enough. And the communication skills, even being able to sense what's happening in their own bodies, they don't have the neurological connections to do that. Yeah. That makes it very difficult to be in relationship with someone who can't access their feelings, much less describe what they feel and what they need as a result. Right. And that disconnect, like it manifests itself in so many ways. Like one of the interesting ways that I've observed, just even in my exploration of intimacy, is how compartmentalized sex gets for a lot of people, where it is like this just like pure physical action rather than this intimacy that it's meant to be. Like a real, it is, you know, the ultimate connection with another human body and a reconnection with the Godhead, you know, and so, but when we have that numbness, and I feel like men have had like a lot more of it because society promotes it. Yeah. But that, all of that, and it's been happening for a long time. And now we have technology that's jumped in the way. It's made it even worse. Yeah. I've been TV free for 25 years. So I'm a little behind the times as far as what's on. However, all the time that the TV took up in my life, I have back. And I raised my kid in an essentially TV-free environment. You know, the first few years of her life, it was kind of there in the corner, and I put a tablecloth over it and then a plant on top of the tablecloth. And then I moved into a cupboard where you have to open the cupboard and move a chair. And then I like moved it outside, and you'd have to like brave the elements and sit in the barn if you wanted to watch it, you know, and what we got back, instead of us bonding by all staring straight ahead at a screen and then being like, that was good, what else is on? Which is no bonding. We read, we made up stories, we played around on the floor, we danced, we sang, we put on costumes, we made stuff with our hands, we went on walks. and kept interacting with each other, right?
Well, I was just reading yesterday about, there's a couple of psychologists actually saying like we're on the cusp of the like greatest mental health epidemic that they've seen in their lifetimes, which has to do with how, when it was specifically about kids and what you're describing with being on their phones. So here they are. And so at the same time, there was like this other great documentary that was on Vice that was all about dating apps. And it's saying like, are we being the same, you know, old tari-daris that are like, change is happening and this is making me uncomfortable? Or is this simply the next step in human evolution and consciousness where this is how we're connecting, is via this kind of technology rather than the face-to-face, which is what we historically would do?
You ever dated someone and you both find yourself laying in bed on your phones?
At this together?
Yeah, where you're both like having your phones on the nightstand, so you're sitting there just finishing a text or finishing a post, and you're both laying in bed scrolling.
Yeah. When I was with my ex, it was like 6 years ago.
Yeah. I banned phones from the bedroom. I'm like, this is the one place they're not going.
Yeah. Do you have an alarm clock?
You know, I trained myself to wake up spontaneously.
See, that's the excuse everybody uses.
But I have an inner alarm clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I don't have that. I'm going to need something to go off at 6 a.m.
Really?
Yeah.
So the trick is getting enough rest, and then you have to tell your brain what time you want to wake up. It works after a while.
Yeah.
I woke up today without an alarm. I set one just in case, because I'm a 2-hour different time zone being here with you. But I woke up plenty of time,
Yeah. So let's flash forward. When was your first Burning Man? What year?
I believe it was around 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was what took you there? What brought
So this is going to sound bad. I'm going to wrap myself out just a little bit. I'm sorry, y'all, that I was that kind of burner at that time, but I didn't know what I was doing.
You're a sparkle pony?
No, but I think I qualify now. What do you think? Do you like the hair?
It's very sparkly.
Full mane. I went to Burning Man because I was traveling around with a performance art troupe called The Living Tarot. Mm-hmm. And what we did was we became the cards in the tarot deck. And for people who are familiar with that, there's a bunch of cards in the tarot, but there's 22 in the major arcana. Mm-hmm. And we gave people live readings on a stage. And so the audience would ask a question. I was the high priestess for the troupe. So people would come sit with me and I would protect them from my crazy friends unless my card was called, and then I'd go into action. Mm-hmm. And they would all quickly, they had each played 5 characters, and they would pull something and wrap it around their unitard and become this character and then interact from the point of view of that card's advice with the querent.
Wow.
And it was beautiful.
That's
and
cool.
We had improvisational music and it was very intense. Each show was different. And our group wanted to go to Burning Man. Mm-hmm. And we had an old Greyhound bus that we were traveling around in.
Yeah. How did you guys hear about Burning Man?
I'm sure it was from the festival circuit back then, right? Okay. But we were also working for tips. So to try running a bus on tips, we were skinny, we were barely eating, and everything had to go in the gas tank to get us down the road. And we could not come up with whatever it was, $250 or whatever the tickets were way back then for 22 of us.
Yeah. Was your child with you?
No, at that particular burn, no, but she did come when she was 11.
Okay.
But I think she was at home with her dad for, that part of the journey. Mm-hmm. So we scrounged enough money for one ticket, who we gave to our bus driver. And the rest of us had to figure out how to get in. Mm-hmm. So back then, they didn't have radar. They didn't have, layers and layers. It wasn't as highly secure. It was a younger festival. Some people were willing to like walk around and climb through the desert, and I wasn't. So I decided I was going to stow away on the bus. And, which was great because 22 people on a bus for 3 months, we had no privacy. Yeah. If you wanted privacy, you put a sarong over your head.
Yeah.
Like, are you masturbating again? No, leave me alone. Hey, look over there, So we were very desperate for privacy. So
again, by the way, this is
so
it's already been multiple occasions.
Somehow I managed to lay on the bottom side of the bus behind cases of water, lay on my side. So, and I was quite thin, so it's like 4 inches of space tipped up on my side against the wall. And whoever was at the gate somehow bought the idea that this big bus was there with just a driver. And our other people were coming somehow. We were going to meet them there with the bus.
Yeah.
And, they were naive gate check people too. Yeah. We were all starting out. And they go in to check the bus. And I've now realized I'm private and alone. And I'm so excited.
Is it time to masturbate?
Yes! I'm like, yay! I finally have privacy and no one can see me or hear me, and this is such a relief because you just don't want to be doing that stuff in front of your friends, right?
Sure.
So
for me, it depends on the friends.
I'm really about to have an orgasm here, and suddenly this hand parts the water cases and fishes like 1 inch from my nose. I see this hand jabbing back to see if there's anyone there, and I'm trying not to have an orgasm in that very second when this hand is there, which is somehow heightening the sensation for this whole thing.
Oh my God.
And they miss me, and I have a very quiet orgasm, so I feel way better, and we get in the gate.
Oh wow, that's most definitely the best first entry story I've ever had on the show, at least. Yeah.
It did make me want to go back to Burning Man.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now you're associating that entry with the serotonin high every time.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
And something
you
bit
penetrated Burning Man. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So you get in there.
What
was it? What was your first night on playa like?
I'm sure we were just exhausted. I'm sure we had just driven in. We all had bunks on the thing, so it was like any other night. We just climbed back into our bunks and went to sleep. And
you were ready to just like cuddle and have a cigarette. if you smoke, yeah.
I think I did at that time. But I was so intimidated by what I saw when I woke up. I wasn't the kind of leap off the bus, I'm home. It was more like, what the hell? There's no trees. Remember, I came from Rainbow where it was all nature and birds and hippies. This was like being on the moon. Mm-hmm. I had no preparation. We didn't read the survival guide because we didn't get one.
Right.
It was 2000. I don't even know that I learned how to use a computer. Right. So we didn't have.
Did we have internet? Yeah, we had internet.
Barely.
And
we didn't have like Facebook and like I wasn't hip to any of that. So I knew there was a festival when we were here and that I got in.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what this was or how to deal with it. And I was appalled that there was not even a bug or a rock. There was no context for me. I stayed on my bus pretty much the entire time.
Yeah.
Just looked out the window.
The entire week?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where my bed was. That's where the food was. The air was good. We didn't have an air conditioner. And people would get on and off the bus and they'd be like, Sonia, you're kind of missing the burn.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not. I see it. Look, see, the thing is burning. I can see it from here. I see a guy sitting on a couch over there. This is good. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I did a version of that for 5 years.
No way. For the next 5 years? Why did you go back?
I don't know. I went back because our troop went back. I went back.
You got off to perform?
Yeah.
Okay. Then went right back into the bus?
Yeah.
Your green room.
Take like mushrooms, do performance, get lost. Someone had to carry me because I couldn't find my way back. I was and so I wasn't well prepared. And so I did make a few friends here and there. We get off the bus and like bond with a person. I was sort of like the needy burner girl who like, you like me? Let's hang out. I'm just going to show up at your tent every day or hide in my bus and you come find me.
Yeah.
And eventually that guy said, I'm going to teach you how to walk on the playa in a sacred way. And I said, I'm so sensitive and this is so overwhelming. Mind you, I was camping on the periphery.
Right.
Because I couldn't stand to be downtown. It was enough. Like, I see it. It's happening. It's over there. There's the man. I need the moon. I need the mountains. And he, I'm going to rattle myself again.
Please.
He gave me some mushroom tea, a light dose, and said, I'm going to teach you how to walk on this ground in a sacred way.
This is your 5th year?
Maybe 3rd, something around that, yeah.
Anything more than a year is amazing to me.
It was a lot of missing the burn, but I didn't know I was missing anything because I was in it as far as I could go. I felt like I was completely there.
Yeah.
So it was the year where we had that long, skinny temple that David Best made. Do you remember? It looked almost like the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, it's definitely before my time.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
I'm sure some of the listeners remember it.
So he took me and showed me how to tune my energy field to be able to pass through energetic bubbles that are around different experiences. So for someone like me, I'm not just, look, what's over there? Let's walk over there. I'm actually moving through like hyper-dimensional layers of the matrix, but I see them and feel them. So Absolutely. It was a much more intense experience for me. And auric fields of people, but also of camps. Mm-hmm. So he said, okay, look, we're walking here in the desert. We're about to walk past this camp. Now what I want you to do is stop and breathe, and I want you to put a sphere around your body of your own energy, and then we're going to pop through this barrier. We're going to pause right at the threshold, tune into it, merge enough, basically take some of their energy, mix it with my field, use that to be able to energetically merge, and then pop out the other side, reset, and keep walking. Right. And so we walked in a walking meditation, one foot in front of the other. Each foot was a breath. It took hours to walk from our camp to the temple, through the temple, and back home. But by the time I did that, I knew how to walk on the playa. Yeah. And from then on, I was free. I could go wherever I wanted.
I'm sorry, clarification. Who was this man?
His name was Shalom. Okay. I don't know.
Okay.
He was a photographer in San Francisco. And if you're listening, Shalom, thank you.
How did you meet him?
He was attracted to our performance.
Okay.
And in the performance that year, I had dressed as an angel, which I sort of still am.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had a gold serving platter strapped to the back of my head like a halo, which this year I'm thinking of making another one. I haven't done it in so long.
Very cool.
And he recognized that this was a more spiritual type experience for me, and he understood that.
Right. No, what you're describing, it's interesting. There's a study that I was reading about a couple of years ago. These group of scientists that were studying like psychedelics and how it's, I think it was in the past year, and how it's affecting the brain. And they actually gave some people LSD and like put them in CAT scans. Did you hear about this?
No, but it sounds really boring to be in a CAT scan.
Boring is an understatement. I look at these test subjects, and I think the scientists were saying the same thing. It's like, you guys are fucking heroes. You're going to lay there on LSD for hours on end and let us study your brain?
Poke you and prod you.
Oh, my God. But no, what these guys they'd had some practice. So what they found, though, they were expecting there to be like these light up connections. And what they found is like the opposite was happening, is that the editing parts of the brain, like what you were describing, were shutting down. Mm-hmm. So the brain, what they were describing, also works more as like a filtration device. There's so much reality coming at us at all times that the brain holds things back.
Right.
And so what you're describing about taking like the low dose mushroom tree, but then like connecting, because you were already receiving more of that energy and more of that information. It was it was overwhelming.
Right.
And this was a nice tool to help you kind of navigate that.
Integrate and understand, and also a safe person.
Right.
So yes, maybe it was partially the tea that helped me.
Sure.
But it was also, he knew and gave me a template, and that's a thing. People
the psychedelic is a tool.
Roll out energetic templates for each other. Mm-hmm. So humans learn by example. A little kid will watch someone do something and suddenly they can do it, even if they haven't practiced.
Right.
And so when we see someone do something, we kind of download the program from them. And it's not just the physical seeing, it's also an energetic seeing.
Yeah.
So I could feel that he had integrated and learned how to be on the playa and still keep his sacred center.
Right.
And so I got that information from his field as well as a practical experience of navigating and some tips.
Yeah. So what was the next year like?
I believe this is around 17 or 18 years. They're a little bit blurred together.
Sure.
I'm sure I looked for him again. I don't know that I found him. I just remember like little interesting bits and pieces of different things that have happened. I saw my first vaporizer, which they used to be huge things.
Yeah.
That was interesting. It's all a little bit of a blur. There was the year that I went and the tent door kind of blew off my tent, and so I was in a 3-sided box of dust the entire time.
Like a bucket.
Yeah. It was an inch of dust on everything.
Yeah. And then at some point during this journey, you started to build the healing movement that you are now most well known for. And I know, I mean, this is the part that was interesting. So it was your associate, your public relations professional, your friend. I'm not sure who I would describe. I want to say her name was Julie.
One Love.
Was she reached out to the show about having you on?
Yeah.
I don't know. Did she tell you what my response was?
She told me that you'd been to my workshops before.
Yeah,
that you knew.
Well, she emailed the website, the Burn Forecast website, and then like the email was forwarded to me, and I'm like, yes, we should absolutely have Sonya Sofia on, because this will be my 4th burn this year, and so my first burn, I remember feeling like this thing that was missing, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was, and I'd been in the community for like a year at that time, and I ended up going to my first burn as a co-lead on San Diego's project. And that was the only reason I went. Like, if I hadn't been given responsibility, I don't think I would have been ready to go.
Yeah.
But, the week completely kicked my ass. And I remember during this time, like, I kept feeling like something's missing as far as intimacy. And that's when I ended up at your workshop. It was one of the days. And I had an experience breaking through and crying. And I'd had some familiarity with EFT at that time, but not a strong sense. But there's definitely a magic out there. Like when you're out there, your senses change, the way you take information and changes. So like having done EFT on my own in my room didn't have the same energy.
Right.
As it had there. Out there, we were, how big, what is it, like 100 people in the audience? 200?
Maybe at that time, but it's 400 to 600 now.
Oof,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then the second year on Playa, I remember I went out with the intention to break this thing, whatever wall I had up about intimacy, and like my sex life had become very compartmentalized, where I was having like sex partners, but they had no intimacy or connection to them really.
That's painful.
Yeah. And I was like, what happened here? And I kept like going to things. I'm like, my family was growing. My social life was becoming more and more incredible. And I had all these amazing, loving people in my life. And yet somehow like, I'm like, where did the like romance and flings go? I used to have like connections.
Yeah.
And they've just fully disappeared since I've come into this community. And then I accidentally ended up at one of your workshops. Yeah, I had a breakdown one night, and the next day I'm like, I'm ready to go like deeper into this. And I ended up, and I remember after I sat down and you came out and you started the session, that's when I was like, oh, wait, I've been here before. Second year in a row. And that one, I had a beautiful breakthrough and I cried, and you led us through a guided experience where we went back to the earliest place in our lives where we felt that we put up walls around our heart.
Yeah.
And I remembered, it was when I was like 3 years old.
Right.
And my dad was yelling and accusing my mother of an affair. And like, that's when it began for me. That's the earliest memory I had. And so that I cried and like let a lot of things out that night. And the next day, it was like Friday. And mind you, like this is my second burn. I had like no intimate connections with anybody, no flings, no nothing. First year on Playa, I literally just felt like whatever part of me is connected to physical attraction and sex was just like shut down.
Yeah.
My sacral chakra was just like, it's done. But then this year, so it's Friday, we wake up And that whole night before, I'd just been like crying and letting things out. We wake up and we have a couple of virgins in our camp, and I'm like, sure, let me go show you guys around. And then a couple of more people join our groups, and then like 6 or 7 of us head out of camp. And as we're walking, I'm kind of leading the way. I'm tall. I'm usually in front of the group. Mm-hmm. And I'm leading the way, and behind me, I hear one person ask another person, where are we going anyway? And the other person says, oh, just rolling the dice, see what happens. And we make a left turn, and we arrive at a bar. And it's the first bar we hit. I'm like, all right, let's get in there and get a drink. And we get in there, and it's one of those bars where in order to get a drink, you have to roll dice.
That's funny. So
I roll dice, and it lands on bartender's choice. Bartender is this British girl, and she says, I would like a kiss. Oh. And we start going at it. And so it was literally from the night before, Boom. What a shift, immediate shift. And then so this third burn comes around. I remember a good friend of mine was like, let's go do some sort of workshop. I'm like, I know exactly where we're going to go. And yeah, it's been, the floodgates have just really been open. I remember coming back from that burn, and I had friends pointing out to me, I had female friends telling me we don't know, I don't know what happened with you out there, but all of a sudden there's a lot more conversation among the girls about you.
We're feeling it.
Yeah. Something shifted.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. Energetically, we're broadcasting to each other. So you went from closed, no vacancy to there's room for you. Yeah. And suddenly their whiskers are twitching, and they're like,
Yeah. So that's 3 years that I've experienced. Okay. How many years has it been since you started doing those workshops?
I started leading workshops in 2005, and I started with Red Lightning in 2009, I believe.
What camp was it in 2005? Do you remember?
Freedom Community. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've heard of those people.
I haven't.
But they're, and I don't even know if they're still on the playa anymore. Mm-hmm. But around 2005, I did my first little baby workshop, and I remember sitting in the dust the year before on the playa.
Was it an EFT workshop?
Yeah.
So were you already doing work with EFT before that?
In 2005, I was certified. In 2004, I had started learning it.
Right.
And actually, my first EFT workshop was at a rainbow gathering.
Yeah.
I learned it and went, I know the perfect people to practice on. They're going to be grateful for anything. They're not judgmental. Yeah. They'll be happy for whatever. Yeah. And I went and experimented, and I loved it. And more people came. I did it every day, and it went boom, 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 boom. And I was like, wow, they talk, more people come. This is how it should be. So then I got up the nerve. Well, I tried to get up the nerve to do it at Burning Man, but I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anyone. I was just a normal little burner bunny, wearing lingerie, going to this and that, trying on things, having sex publicly for the first time, doing random stuff that I never dared to do. But I remember sitting down in the dirt, having a breakdown moment next to a dome. And my chest was aching. I looked at that dome, and my heart said, you are supposed to be filling domes like that.
Yeah.
My self-esteem wasn't anywhere close to believing that I could do that.
Right.
And I didn't know what I would be saying or why anyone would even listen to me. But I could feel this reverberating aching in my chest. And I spoke it out loud to my friend. And my friend was involved with the Freedom Community. And the next year, he reminded me of that moment, which I'd tried to suppress. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want to plan and I didn't know how to do. And he said, hey, is there anyone in the dome, this afternoon? No, it's free. Great. So he's like, do you want to do something? I was like, sure, So he goes into the street in front of our camp and just starts talking and telling people there's something that's starting in 20 minutes. Come in. And he gets 30 people together.
Wow.
And I wander in my white negligee and start tremblingly describing this process and sharing it with people. But I had this idea that burners were so much more special and fancy and important, and I wasn't as comfortable with the sparkly externals as I would have been at Rainbow, where people were just somewhere, in my mind, more down to earth. And they were the exact same people. Mm. And they were grateful. And the next year I taught at Intheon. I don't know if you remember Intheon, but it was a big, beautiful healing arts type camp, and it rose and fell. And I got discovered at Intheon by the program director, or who would become the program director for Red Lightning. And so I came in on the ground floor the first year of the camp, and this, I think, is our 9th year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did EFT come into your consciousness?
I have always been looking for hacks for personal development, spiritual development, and super geeked out on how the brain works, how the psyche works, how spirit works. I spent a lot of time meditating, doing yoga, working on myself, reading libraries worth of self-help books, and doing the exercises in the books, right? That's the actual active part of it. Going to workshops, looking for shortcuts. And this, I've also been very stubborn in that if it doesn't work for me, there's no way I'm going to go talk about it to other people. I don't care who thinks it's great. If I don't have a direct experience of it being amazing, I can't talk about it.
Right.
So I was looking for a way to heal chronic depression that was like something that had me in bed sometimes for days at a time, that I'd been struggling with my whole life. I was neurotic, insecure, very, very emotional. I had a lot of drama in my relationships, not a lot of trust. I was very, very dyslexic and extremely sensitive as an empath. So it was an awkward mix. And also really smart, right? So there was this like uncomfortable mix of things going on with me. And
intelligence is tough. Because you can... Artists, my creative partner always says this, like, we are extremely talented at sitting around and seeing it all in detail.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody hurts us, not only do we think that person hurt us, we are watching a movie of it. It's got a musical soundtrack. We've casted the characters in the movie.
And you're connecting the dots for how long this may have been going on. What it really meant, and you can make up all these stories. And
there's a prequel. Another director directed that one, so the mix is a little different. It's all there.
I had that.
Yeah.
And I started dating a healer who was using a frequency generator. It was modifying people's brains. He was this brilliant kind of scientist guy who was using Russian space technology on people's brains. And I was fascinated. But by day, he was this amazing healer. And by night, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh, wow.
And his last name actually was Hyde.
No way.
It was. We dated for 3 or 4 months, and one night I woke up and he was whispering evil things into my ears while I slept. Things to demean my self-esteem, things to make me follow him. It was like he wanted to program me, and it creeped me out.
Yeah, that just gave me chills.
Yeah, like psychopathic stuff, right? And I broke up with him, and he went insane. He threatened to bring storms down upon my house. He was like a black magician.
Wow.
So his psyche was very fractured, and I shattered. I just didn't have the inner resources to deal with psychic attack on top of opening my heart, you know. So in that state, I prayed and said, don't give me what I want anymore, give me what I need.
Yeah.
And I had become, basically I was suffering from PTSD from the breakup, but also just from where I was delicately placed in my life. And this is way back in like 2004. A friend of mine had learned EFT from a little weekend workshop. She picked it up online, and she was worried about me because I wasn't answering emails or the phone for 2 months. Couldn't finish sentences. I was shaking a lot. I was fully dysfunctional. And she came over to my house and said, I just want to try this thing out on you. And I was too weak to protest at that point. So she actually tapped on me because I was too floppy to tap on myself, sent some stuff and wrote some stuff down. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And an hour later, I felt like I had gotten over a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
We did about 4 more sessions within a period of a few weeks, and I was 100% good to go. I was ready to date again. I had my life force back, and I just thought, I wish I was smart enough to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
Turns out I was. It's not very complicated. And I never looked back. I was like, okay. So I was doing energy work with people and massage, and I started getting all my clients to do 30 minutes of tapping with me before their massages.
Yeah.
Took the knots out of their back before they got on the table. Because their heads were the things that were putting the knots in their bodies. And I was like, oh my gosh. So eventually I shifted my practice, and within 2 months I had a waiting list.
Yeah.
And so I practiced and did it on myself, experimented on anything that would hold still, and read everything there was to learn about it, got involved in the EFT community and read every article and practiced and learned. And now I teach and train practitioners and travel around the world and talk about it.
I've had a couple of similar experiences, not quite as intense as that, but like having someone in my life that really hit all of the triggers. And I'm like, wow, like this person was in my life for like a blink. And in this very short time period, they somehow hit enough triggers to send me into a very dark place. Mm-hmm. And I, here I was with my ego thinking that I'm stronger than that. Like nobody's ever going to have that kind of power over me. But the place that I've come to, the spiritual conclusion that I've come to is that and you can look at this like spiritually or psychologically, and that's how I generally know something is my truth, if I can hit it from both angles.
Yeah. So,
spiritually, either like this is the path that I have chosen for myself. Psychologically, I subconsciously chose to bring this person in. Yes. Yeah. This person was there to put me in this state where they broke me down, and now I was ready for this other thing. So, when I've had my my Kundalini awakening experience, which I've talked about on the show in the past before, like that came as a result of being thrown into the pit, into the darkness. Mm-hmm. So like at some level, you chose this person to be in your life to break you down so that you're ready for that next thing to come into your life.
Oh yeah. And you know what it was that I needed to learn? Mm. I needed to learn that evil existed because I didn't believe in that, because it was too scary for me. Yeah. And I also had a Kundalini awakening in my late 20s and was doing a lot of meditation and seeing visions and having energy running through my body and just amazing experiences like that. But it was too terrifying for me to imagine that conscious, deliberate evil existed. Right. So I got to have an up-close personal experience.
Someone who means ill.
With malintent, devious and on purpose. Yeah.
And that you believe is, I don't know where I'm at with that part of the conversation yet, with my own place, just full disclosure. But is that something that comes from the human ego, or is it at an energetic spiritual level? Like this person, there is no saving somebody who's that evil.
I've always seen it from the more loving point of view. A, first of all, I ignored it. And then B, I was like, okay, well, this is a malfunction because you're in desperate need of love, because you never got what you needed, because you don't think you can get what you need. You have to steal it or take it or, put power over someone else.
That's where I feel
as far as is it reachable, is it healable? Mm-hmm. It actually has to be like, imagine the evil person is like the injured person laying on the floor. They have to actually acknowledge the hand that's coming to lift them up. Mm-hmm. They may not even be able to grasp it, but they have to look yearningly towards it at least. So there has to be a movement inside that person. There has to be something that wants redemption. Yeah. And
as with all things, as with all exchanges and types of people, you have to want to change at some level.
You have to want to. They might bite the hand that tries to feed them. They might kick and scream against it because this dark energy wants to protect itself. It wants to live, and so there might be a battle within them that you're experiencing. But, I think he was very much split. I think he disowned that part of himself and needed to cry and heal. And, why would you want to try to possess somebody's mind?
Yeah.
Because you don't think that you're worth someone wanting to give to you, right?
Absolutely.
So, but it was the greatest blessing, even though it was the darkest relationship I ever experienced, because I learned how to dismantle terrible pain patterns in myself and in other people. And it set me on this career path, and suddenly I was, making money, helping people, and I never had to advertise again because people tell people about stuff that works.
Right.
So I don't put ads in magazines. I don't even have a business card with my name on it right now. People find me.
And EFT definitely is an interesting... It has very strong... Like as a business person, I would look at it and say it has very strong selling points because it's what I was describing earlier is you can hit it from all angles.
Yep.
If you are someone who, like, the spiritual approach to things resonates with you more, then EFT, tapping like that experience can take you into that inner part of you that you're trying to explore. If you're looking at it from a more psychological, personal growth perspective, from a more humanized place, what I describe it to people as is that I had a very powerful guided meditation experience. And
you can reprogram your mind with it.
Right. And you can come at it from whatever angle you want. And it's not something that can because there are a lot of us who dismiss certain experiences like this, like, oh, it's just a woo-woo thing. Oh, you guys are, fucking hippies. But like, no, you can come at whatever angle with this and it can give you healing experiences. And I think that's where like the real power in that lies. And like what you're describing about releasing people's pain, like the tension in their upper back and their lower back, and the massage work becomes easier.
Yeah, it's got 20 years of research behind it now. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, I think I put this up on your blog page on Facebook, the VA just sanctioned EFT as an effective treatment for PTSD for soldiers. They've been pushing for 10 years to get them to acknowledge that you can sit down with a soldier and give them an EFT session and decrease the PTSD. And if you do 4 to 6 sessions with them, you can get them 80 to 90% over it permanently.
Amazing.
Without drugs. Done.
Yeah.
And who isn't suffering from PTSD in this culture?
Yeah.
Right? It's not just soldiers. It's violence and public school and religious abuse and,
Oh, yeah. Now, when you learn about PTSD, it's everyone is at a certain level of PTSD.
Yeah.
Like some of us are, so extreme where we hear something loud and we jump, and like but for a lot of us, just even the way that we respond to our families and work fight situations and fear of confrontation. Yeah. It's
all a form of like embedded trauma. And that's what I love about this is that it takes it not just out of your brain and your mind and the inner conversation, but biologically they're doing blood tests on people before and after doing a tapping session. They're seeing a change in the way their blood looks under a microscope.
Yeah.
And now they're looking at the genes and they're seeing that the genes express differently. So basically, without getting too technical, there's a sheath like a pillowcase that covers the DNA strand. And that pillowcase has little breaks in it. And where the breaks are, the chemistry can get in and read that section of code that's exposed.
Wow.
And that's how we know, the cell knows which genetic permutation to build the next cell off of. EFT can open and close gaps in that pillowcase so that your genes express differently in the same body. So people are having these miraculous physical healing responses because they finally forgave their abusive stepmother, or their crazy father, or the ex that broke their heart, or their boss that didn't give them the promotion, or whatever it is. Their genes are expressing, so they're healing things that are technically not healable.
Right.
Now, there was a woman who came to me with lupus, and she had like these red blisters all over lips, hands, face, her whole body. She'd been diagnosed when she was 13 or 14 years old. We started tapping and she was processing sexual abuse trauma, violent, graphic stuff. And her skin, lupus type 1, has completely cleared from her body.
Wow.
As she's tapped through decades of those memories, her body just gone.
Amazing.
And blood tests to prove it.
Yeah. It's a very active form of meditation.
Yeah.
And like for some approaches to things, like I know I made huge leaps and bounds in how I dealt with anxiety when I got into like awareness meditation. And you have other people that get into transcendental meditation, and they get my creative partner on the other show he's had multiple concussions. And so he went through this period where he didn't tell me about it till after he solved it.
Yeah.
But he was having suicidal thoughts.
Oh.
And he was thinking like, wait a minute, where the fuck is this coming from? And then he started to explore, and then he got on some medication, and he started transcendental meditation, and that helped him.
Yeah.
And so EFT, I see that as like, it's one of the many different routes that we can take in order to enter our own subconscious and untie the knots.
Yeah.
You know, get into the plumbing deep down underneath our subconscious and clean that thing out so that the water can start flowing on its own.
And that's really what's happening. The body's electrical current is disrupted.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're taking our fingertips and gently tapping on the electrical circuits of the body and saying, hey, wake up, wake up. And the electricity starts to pulse and surge, much like a circuit breaker. So when you have a very strong emotional experience that has a big impact on you, whether it's real impact or imagined impact, like I thought I was going to die, or someone held a gun to my head, either one, the brain shuts down to protect you from overreacting,
Right.
hurting yourself or hurting someone else. So we kind of go numb, we check out, and the fuse is blown. So basically this is like showing people how to find the fuse box, flip the circuit breaker back and forth, find where the file in your brain is that's carrying that information, bring attention and love and empathy, which is all it's waiting for. And that situation rectifies physically adhesions that are in your brain, in your neurology, where there was a spike and there's actually protein growing in a weird way.
Right.
That stuff breaks down. You make new synaptic connections in your brain. It flows beautifully. Your consciousness follows that track. Your new belief or perception about yourself. You get to lay it in the way you want it instead of what that thing taught you.
Yeah.
And you're functioning differently physically, emotionally, energetically, and spiritually.
How do you, in your opinion, or even if you do, like, is there any way that you approach the practice that is a little different than a lot of the community or the mainstream EFT community, if you will?
Other than wearing ball gowns and angel wings?
Sure.
Sparkle hair? Well, yeah, I mean, the burden of the proof for the first 20 years of EFT was on the early practitioners. So they did not want to look woo-woo or be strange. They wanted to be taken seriously. They were wearing the navy blue suits. They were doing the tests in the labs. They were trying to make insurance companies accept this as a real form of treatment, which Kaiser is looking at now, accepting it in hospitals as a form of treatment, which is exciting. But the piece that was different, that I saw was very minimized, was the love part. Because if they came out and said, you know what, love is actually going to fix your emotional, mental, and physical state, they would have been laughed out of the door. So I came in from a background of meditation, yoga, all kinds of spiritual practices, and went, this is a personal development tool. This is what every spiritual practice has at the foundation. It has self-acceptance, love, being with what is, conscientious, bringing yourself back to your breath, letting your body feel what it needs to feel, right? Admitting to yourself. And so I put an emphasis on the love, the forgiveness, the willingness to put yourself in the shoes of the victimizer, of the perpetrator for a minute. Like, so how does someone become an abuser?
Yeah.
Not by being raised by a healthy, loving family.
Yeah.
So someone comes in and realizes, they process their pain from being abused, and then they turn around and be like, so then what happened to dad? It's like, oh my God. Well, his dad beat him. He was abandoned. He was a drug addict. And then it's like, oh, so is it possible to forgive your dad for being the little boy that turned into the father that replicated? And it's like, oh, right? So it goes deeper when you start doing the lineage work.
Right.
And then here's the trippy psychedelic part, is that, so then how did dad get abused? His dad. And then what happened to that dad? Pretty soon you're like, oh my God, this ball's been rolling downhill. And it hasn't stopped because no one's ever forgiven this process. and taken it out of their own expression.
Right.
And now it's me, and it's 20 generations later. And I'm clearing a bloodline that's got a genetic marker for this type of experience. And the buck stops here. And that changes future generations. It changes the past generations. And it even changes people who don't have their bodies on anymore. And I swear that people show up in sessions sometimes, and their ancestors, their dead mother or their great-grandfather is standing there going, thank you. You're like whispering to me, and I'm like, you're welcome. Because they can't do anything about it now. They're just watching this thing that they set in motion blaze through until someone has the, you could say, sensitivity and awareness to actually bring the only thing that could stop it, which is love and forgiveness and empathy for the whole family situation.
Right. I think a lot of people, myself included, have the challenge of trying to figure out how to forgive and show compassion when you feel like this person is still in your life and still, you can't figure out how to even be in their presence without feeling pain.
Well, believe it or not, tapping will take the trigger out of your body. So you can be, and the way you would do that is that you'd be using EFT, tapping on the body, thinking about them, telling the story of what it's like, letting your body feel that, like a tension in my stomach when I think about talking to this man or to this woman. You tap on it, you breathe, you say what you would want to tell them, you tell them all the things that you hate, that they've done wrong. You work it through your nervous system in advance, and I guarantee you that if you do that sufficiently, you can go to Thanksgiving dinner or whatever it is and feel neutral.
What if you've gone numb?
Then the first thing you tap on is, even though I'm numb, I'm numb because it's so intense I couldn't stand to feel it anymore. You defrost the numbness, then you deal with the rage that's underneath that. It comes out of the nervous system and you feel neutral again. Yeah. It's an amazing peace-enhancing tool.
There's no way, there is no easy route out. You have to experience it.
The only way through is through.
Yeah.
Now, you can go an inch a year, or you can go a mile a minute, but you have to go through. There's no pill, there's no ayahuasca ceremony, there's no anything that isn't going to take you back there. You just have to, decide, like, well, how long do I want to be stuck here? Right? It's like if I had duct tape on my hairy leg, do I want to, like, or just like, right? So yeah, you're going to cry, you're going to feel, but I would rather do it in one big hour of something than over 20 years of discomfort and avoiding that person.
Just dive right into the deep end of the pool with the cold water and let it hurt for a minute, and then it goes away.
And then you feel like a freaking hero on the other side of it. And you get your superpowers back. Because all that avoiding and blocking and trying not to think and self-medicating, that takes energy and time and money. And it robs you from creative energy and time and money that you could be doing something else with to keep those force fields up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have been speaking a lot, and you wanted to speak some about kind of like self-care on playa and kind of things that we can do now to prepare. Because this is, I'm going to be saying this in the intro of the show, but this is probably going to be the one that people will be listening to on their drive out there.
Yay! What an honor.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It'll be the new listeners, but then also with podcasts, some listener from Germany will find the show, which we have, and they'll just like go back and listen to like 15 of them in a row.
Yeah.
So the advice that you're giving us, like the story is timeless, the advice is timeless, but it's also kind of timely because it'll be something that people could be listening to potentially. Like, let's say we're on our way out there. What is the biggest thing that you would want to start with telling us that we should keep in mind?
To know that Burning Man has a light and a dark side, and don't go expecting only to have fun. Expect that Burning Man helps burn you. You know, you're the man. You're going to burn through all kinds of things. Some of that's going to be self-induced, and some of it's going to be just the magic of the playa. We all get what we need, not always what we want, but what we need.
Right.
And sometimes those two things are the same and sometimes they're not. Let go of expectations. Let go of comparisons. Trust the force. Tune in and navigate intuitively instead of through your mind. Pick a few things in the what, where, when, but don't try to schedule your day. Let yourself have happenstance and serendipity.
Right. Set like it's like the thing that I talk about professionally. Like set a North Star, but you're walking in that direction. But at some point, you might hit a river, and you're going to have to turn a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can't just walk through the river.
Yeah.
Or you'll drown.
And one of the most valuable things you can do is learn how to process in real time. So something happens on day 1 or day 2. If you're not over it, you've still got that bumming your burn on day 3 and day 4, and you're still thinking about it and you're not present for day 5. So if you can like stop, drop, and tap, you're going to like process it right then and there. You don't have to worry about what it looks like. Burning Man isn't a forced show, even though there's so much external. It's really about being authentic to yourself. So if you're sitting in the dirt crying or yelling or tapping on your body and processing, great. You're going to be fresh and clear for the next experience and heart open, light on.
Can you talk a little bit about the darkness? Because that description you gave, by the way, is the same thing I tell people about psychedelics.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't take it thinking 100% it's going to be fun.
It will take you where you need to go, and it will make you face your stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's the ashes pit moment at Burning Man. It can come from exhaustion or dehydration, but it can also come from someone stole my bike or my girlfriend or...
My bike on my girlfriend. My girlfriend on my bike.
It can also be, confronted with where you think you're supposed to be and where you are and where power struggles at camps. There's so many different versions of what can kind of go wrong. Even just getting to burn. Right. How many times has your vehicle broken down on the way in?
Attending any burn event hazes you.
Yeah.
Like somehow whatever energy is out there, and I mean regional burns as well. Yeah. Whatever energy's out there, like tries to filter people out. Yeah. Like, hey, do you really want this? Yeah. Here's how I'm gonna fuck with you.
Yeah. So there's like, I would say, learning tapping is one of those invaluable skills because it puts you back in your center and it puts you back in grace. You can waste so much energy getting angry or comparing what should have happened to what is happening. Right. But if you know how to just take a hand and tap on your chest and breathe and say, even though this just happened and it sucks, and now I'm afraid of this, this, and this, I love and accept myself. And you breathe. Keep tapping on your chest. I accept that this is what's happening. And you argue with yourself while you're tapping. I don't accept this. I can't fucking accept this. I accept what's happening. I don't accept this. You breathe. And pretty soon you're just like, you feel heard even if there's no one else there to hear you. Right. The empathy that you're looking for from a friend is actually inside you now because you've been your own friend. You feel calm. Your brain functions better. Suddenly you have a solution. If you're all overwhelmed and distraught, you're not going to think clearly enough to see the solution that's right there before you. And sometimes the solution is humbling down enough to ask for help. Right. And burners are feisty, independent people. We're self-reliant. We don't want to ask anyone for help. But part of what builds community is relying on each other. Yeah. So there's this balance between, taking care of your stuff and then also being like, I forgot my bike pump, or I need a fork, or does anyone have one of these? I have one of those.
Isn't it funny that there are two different principles that are both in there? Yeah. Which is like radical self-reliance, but then also like community effort. But people will fixate on one. Yes. And forget that the other is a part of it as well. Yeah. But you do switch back and forth. So when we tap with you on Playa, and you normally do 5 days, right?
I do.
Monday through Friday, every day.
Tuesday through Saturday.
Tuesday through Saturday, okay.
2 to 4 p.m.
2 to 4 p.m. every day.
Red Lightning. This year at Red Lightning again.
Yeah, and those are like, is it like a 2-hour session, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because you'll do an intro, and then we're tapping for over an hour.
Oh, yeah. I figure I got you there.
Yeah.
Might as well take you all the way through.
Yeah. No, we go in deep. I mean, like as soon as I thought, oh, this has got to be the end of, it's like the lines at Disneyland where every time you think it's over, you're like, oh shit, we're going in deeper. So, but with tapping, like the kind of like self-care examples that you were giving, those would be like shorter sessions that you can do on your own, like, 5 minutes or something rather than an hour and a half long session.
Right. Yeah. This hour and a half long is to get down under it and get the root of the thing so it doesn't keep manifesting out in your life.
Right.
Because if you don't clear stuff substantially deeply enough, you're just going to keep manifesting new people to come play that role for you until you touch it enough to heal it. But you can do more superficial tapping for anything that's worrying you or stressing you out or freaking you out. 2 to 3 minutes can really reset your nervous system.
Right.
And I like holding that space for people. And I see that people need to actually get in and clean up the root of their stuff really deeply. So I raised $250,000 to create off playa.
Wow.
What I do on playa, because I was like, these people can't just come tap once a year. They need a lot more support. And who would we be as a culture on this planet if the burners decided to clean up their childhood trauma and their cultural conditioning? What would that do for our society, for our art, for our music, for the way we build buildings or design clothes or do environmental stuff? Like if we rose in our power, the most creative, culturally creative people on the planet, we're the leaders for restructuring our whole planet. So I'm very committed to getting people cleaned up. So I created a...
Civic responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I created an online version of this that I broadcast a live healing session every Monday night from my house.
Yeah.
And people can come in and do it. So this year I'm going to bring 5,000 cards to give a free month of that support to people for all the burners.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As a playa gift. So yeah.
And then so are there it's tough, like, because we try to give people like the best advice that we can give on how to prepare for it, but I mean there isn't a whole lot. Like you try your best and you just have to accept that even if you get your ass kicked, which a lot more of us do than you realize,
They don't put that on Facebook, do they?
Yeah.
Got my ass kicked at Burning Man. Cried in my tent all night.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, you still chose that at some level. You needed to have that experience. Yeah. You knew you did. And it's not like you're saying, it's not what you necessarily want, but it's what you needed.
Yeah. So I would say self-empathy is the key. And the difference between just sitting there having the realization that I needed it, which is good, psychologically it's good. The difference between that and tapping is tapping actually helps your body understand that. So you're actually getting your body into alignment with the part of you that has that awareness. And you're running empathy through your cells. And then your cells will discharge any tension, any holding, any fear. Basically, it's fear coming out of the body. When you're not in a state of fear, then you're back in a state of love or a state of grace where you're like, I'm in the flow. I got my shine on. I'm feeling good. That's what's sexy, by the way. It's not your hot pants. It's not your coolest, newest thing that you now is so dusty you can't even tell what it is. It's the light coming out of your eyes and the energy coming off your body. Yeah.
People get hotter.
I know. Because they're more alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always seen that. Like, God, I'm so much more attracted to a lot more people out here than I am walking around with like all the perfect makeup and the hair. I mean, we're in Beverly Hills. Yeah. There's no shortage of that here right now. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. So this is what year for you, Burning Man? The Worldly?
I'm pretty sure I'm going on 18. I think
18. So you've watched 17. Burning Man go through
17.
Yeah. Anything in the teens, I think is a legitimate answer.
Burner.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of people with like that many years under their belt that, and I'm going to say I'm sure it's not the majority, it's just they happen to be more vocal where they're like, you complain. It's changed, it's not what it used to be, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's changed, and
what doesn't change?
The reason it's changing is because there's something really good going on there.
Right.
And it's attracting more and more people. Yeah, more and more people are moving. Oh, there's more traffic, whatever, right? But the core of it is still profound. And it's up to us to keep the vibe.
Right.
And to help people acclimatize and acculturize. It's not about a private party, let's keep everybody out. It's like, well, let's hip them to what's beautiful and good. And it's even more important for us to keep our hearts open and to invite people who think it's about the show, think it's about drugs, think it's about Facebook pictures or looking good or who you know. Right. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about becoming who you are, being witnessed as who you are, and being able to give those gifts in a very authentic way and an edgy way for you.
Yeah.
So whatever your edge is, you're going to express that part of yourself for yourself. Yeah. And we're lucky to get to witness that and inspire each other.
Yeah, because, it's honestly, it's easier to be among more of your own like-minded people and say, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, the real challenge to growth is when you're going to get more, on this show, I dump on LA a lot, just because I'm from San Diego and I think it's funny. But we'll get like the weekend warriors that come out that are like there for their party, and a lot of like the more veteran burners will like complain about that and say, oh, the vibe has changed, the energy's changed. And like, I would submit, and I feel like you're on the same page, that's where you're really being called to action. Like, now that you're dealing with some people that are not on the same vibe as you necessarily, this is your chance to really see how far you've come on your journey towards, for lack of a better description, enlightenment. Are you allowing the love in? Are you there for these people and seeing that they have on some level chosen to be here because on some level they do want to grow. They are gravitated towards something. And
they're becoming. And you were that person your first year too.
Yeah.
And so, it's up to us to be initiates and initiate them and say, great. So you're missing a piece of information. I can tell by the way you're throwing something on the ground or, and I'm going to take it upon myself to lovingly look you in the eye, not to judge you, but to say, there go I, but for the grace of God. I was that person who didn't know how to get off the bus. Here's this person in their fancy RV that's missing the burn.
Right.
There are fancy rich people that camp at our camp sometimes, and I walk by their tent and ask them how they're doing and say, hey, you need sunblock, come here, I'll put it on your nose, and take it upon myself to kind of mother them through this experience. And we're paying it forward.
Absolutely. So we're wrapping up here right now. Just a couple of basic questions about tapping. How complicated is it to learn like just the super basics?
You can learn it in 5 minutes.
Where do people go to do that?
Come to my website, Sonya Sofia, SONYA SOPHIA, SonyaSofia.us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that.
.us. And I have the tapping broadcast I was talking about. It's called World Tapping Circle. And that's a different website, worldtappingcircle.com. Yeah. And if you come play with me on the playa this year, I'm going to give you a free month of healing so that you can keep your burning.
Yeah.
After.
That's going to be important.
Hopefully year round, because basically I went to the playa, came back, was like, why am I even coming back from the playa? Yes, I can't live in the desert by myself, but I don't have to change the freaky, beautiful ribbons in my hair anymore.
Absolutely.
And 1 year after Burning Man, I was like, I'm not going to take these out of my hair.
Yeah.
I've been wearing my hair like this for 7 or 8 years. And I'm going to wear the same type of clothes that I would wear there. And basically make my life more like it is out there. And eventually, I think that's what we're all looking for. We want the world to be more like Burning Man, right? So the world that's coming into Burning Man, initiate them, bring it back out into our culture, and it's happening.
Absolutely, yeah. Is there a very specific pattern you follow with the tapping though? Like it's just
yes and no. I'm basically taking you through points on the meridians that stimulate every single circuit, but the circuit box doesn't care which breaker you flip first or what order. I'm teaching you a sequence because it's easier to remember so that you're really getting detailed with yourself. But even if you only do a few of the tapping points, like the ones I just told you on the front of the chest, you're going to start processing at the speed of thought and put yourself back into peace.
Yeah. So on your drive, you could pull over somewhere when you're going to take your break and pull up the internet on your phone and go to sonyasofia.us and get that basic training right there. And you could start tapping like right now and make it super easier for yourself.
Yeah. And you can Google me. I've got a bunch of free tapping at Sophia School. Yeah. It's on YouTube channel, and I've got hours and hours of tapping sessions with me and some little short 5 to 10 minute ones too.
Perfect.
And I'm making 2 special ones for the burner community. One is the pre-burn emotional toolkit, which teaches you tapping and gives you some pre-burn processing.
Awesome.
And I'll put that up on your Facebook page.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Arash. It's Burner Podcast, right?
Yeah.
And then a post-burner blues tap for the integration of afterburn and aftercare. We'll
have an episode for that coming up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's super easy to pick up, super easy to learn, and any little thing that you can do that resonates with you, every little approach, it's mind, body, and soul, right? Doesn't mean you drop all the other things you're doing. Like, you should still keep journaling. You should still keep meditating. This can be another tool that you have in your toolkit. And you can have these 5-minute, 10-minute sessions that can absolutely help make your integration in and out easier.
And beam me into your iPad or your laptop once a week, and I'll come to your house energetically through your computer and tap with you. And they're all archived too, so you don't have to be there on Monday night with me at 6 p.m. Pacific. You can be anywhere. 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm tapping with people while I'm sleeping. Yeah. Through the video library.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for all of the work that you do for the community, and thank you so much for coming on. And I will most definitely see you on Playa. I'll be out there for one. That's just my tradition at this point.
Nice.
I'll be out there one day. There are people that come all 5 days.
It's true. And, if you're thinking of coming, come early. Come on Tuesday. The first workshop I'm doing this year is called Purge the Past. Ooh. And that's going to get you really set up well. And you won't have missed them all if you want more. So come early, get your burn set right, and then bring friends to a cool thing that you'll know about.
That's awesome. That's all at Red Lightning.
Red Lightning 815 in Esplanade. Esplanade is the drag, the main street.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Arash. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so please give us a like on Facebook and join the group. I'd love to see some more discussions happening in there. And come find me on Playa this year. Like I said earlier, I'm at Burners Without Borders on 245 in Esplanade. And leave us a review on iTunes, please. Please. I know there are reviews on there, but we need more, a whole bunch more. The more you review the show on the various apps that you use, the more visible it becomes, so more of our tribe can be a part of this conversation. All the links are over at burnerpodcast.com. We'll be away at Burning Man, so it's our annual tradition of there is no show next week. So every year we take a couple of weeks off so we can go do the thing out in the desert. You can connect with me on all these social medias at Mr. Arash. That's spelled MrArash. I am most active on Facebook and Instagram, but you can tweet me and stuff too. Burner Podcast is released on the first and third Wednesdays of the month and is available on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeart Radio, and TuneIn Radio, among many others. The show is not hard to find. The Burner Podcast team includes, but is absolutely not limited to, our associate producers, Tori Massey, Luis Lozano, network music editor Navjit Sarna, who also produces Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline. So if you want to hear some music on your drive out, go tune into that. Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline. DJ mixes by DJs active in the community. So we thank you, dear listeners, for all your support. Our opening theme music is America's Horse with No Name Remix, and it is produced by Joman. Check out his music over at soundcloud.com/DJ Joman. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.